Hey y'all, hey, it's Tracy Time. We're in for a fantastic Friday edition with me live at lunch. I hope that you are having a fantastic Friday so far and have had a great productive morning and that you are looking forward to an even better and even more productive afternoon and evening into the weekend. Today, I am going to be joined by Corey Strong, who is a candidate for the Tennessee district Congress seat. I'm gonna get that wrong until I talk to Corey and he gets that right. Currently, the incumbent is Steve Cohen, who has served for several years, and we want to hear today from Corey Strong personally to allow him the opportunity to use this platform to share his views and to help better educate us on what's motivating him to run for office. So I am excited that you have joined me today. Let's see who's with me. I have 3 people with me so far. It's great. And Corey's going to join in. I've given him instructions. You all know how this works. We will have the person join us. We'll have a bit of a conversation with them, open it up for questions, and then we'll adjourn at 1 o'clock so that I am not at 1 o'clock. I'm sorry, at 12:30. So I'd like to do 30-minute segments on Fridays with the guests just to give them an opportunity to, hey there, Cammie, to give them an opportunity to use this platform for them, and especially for a candidate to take time out to come and spend time with us today. So, Cammie, how are you doing? Oh, I forgot. I'm remiss. Forgive me. It's lunchtime, and it's 1 o'clock Eastern, but it's 11 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone, and 10 o'clock, and it's 11 or 12 o'clock here, so it's lunchtime. So I'm interested in knowing, how are you all doing, and what are you having for lunch? Let's see. I think we have, hey, Alandria, how you doing? Mitchell Norman, how are you? Happy Friday to you all. Thank you for joining me. I am looking forward to Corey Strong joining. And what are you guys eating for lunch? It's lunchtime. It's really, truly straight up lunchtime. A lot of times I come on 11:30, which is a little bit early for some for lunch, and super early for my friends in the West Coast. They fuss at me all the time about missing me for live at lunch. And I have to remember, it's not quite lunchtime for them. But if they're early birds for lunch, if they start their day super early, it could be lunchtime for them now, right? Or brunch time, maybe. So y'all tell me, what are you eating for lunch? What's going on? Looks like I just got Corey on. He just joined, and I'm going to go ahead and add him so that we can have every possible moment on this afternoon live at lunch. He's joining us now. Welcome.
What's going on, sister? How you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. How's everything going?
Everything is going wonderfully. I just told people that you were going to come on, and I look forward to it. You can see that we have some people joining us now. And what I want to do, first of all, thanks for taking time out to in your campaign to be with us. And what the format that I shared with you is what we will follow so that we can make really good use of your time, is to allow you the opportunity to share and give us information about your pursuit. And then we want to open it up if anyone has any questions for them to ask you questions, and you can respond to them live. So first of all, go ahead and introduce us and share. You have the open floor, Corey, so you do with it as you will, and then we will chime in and I'll ask some questions from there.
So first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thanks for connecting. I know we have a mutual friend and someone that knows my family, and I was born and raised in Memphis, but I got family up in Tipton County. And so, when you're from the country, everybody knows everybody and everybody supports everybody. And so I know you spoke Ms. Wright in that regard. But again, my name is Corey Strong. I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives in Tennessee's 9th District. And as you mentioned, that is an incumbent, holds that seat, Steve Cohen. And that is a name that people know and recognize here. And so a lot of people have asked me, why this seat, why now, why are you running, and why you? And so I'll start with why now. I think this is a pivotal time for Memphis and Shelby County. Prior to COVID, prior to America finally realizing that Black Lives Matter, I think we're transition economically in the world. And right now, Memphis is falling further and further behind as a competitive city. And the Ninth District makes up most of Memphis and Millington as well. And so we're falling behind. And specifically, the Black community is falling behind. That we don't have the level of jobs that we need. We don't have the volume of jobs we need. And the reality is most of the people in our community cannot go work at one job and make enough money to be at home to feed their kids and read to them, and make sure they get their schoolwork done. And I think when you look at all of the issues that we have here in Memphis with disparate healthcare outcomes and food deserts and blight and bankruptcy and crime and all of those issues are rooted in the fact that we have systemic poverty in this area, and that only changes if we make an intentional decision to make all of our communities in the Ninth District, but particularly our Black communities, a part of our economy. And so I'm running to be an economic champion for the Ninth District. Steve Cohen has been there for quite some time, but we have not seen a significant change in our district. We have not seen the types of federal projects that are going to turn things around. We have not seen the type of job growth that's required to make our workers in our area competitive. And I'm talking about skilled labor jobs and training, right? Like the jobs right now, we're having conversations about whether or not the logistics and temporary jobs should make $15 an hour. I argue we should be going after $20, $30, and $40 an hour jobs. We should be that type of economy. We should be a competitive place where industries know I can come to Memphis. It has a strong workforce and I can grow whatever my industry is there because that's the place to be. Unless you have leaders that are continually pushing that, it's not going to happen. And as we turn this corner, more jobs are being automated and going away. COVID has allowed that to happen. And if we don't have a champion in DC, when the lobbyists are passing the laws that help these industries grow, if you don't have someone saying, hey, come to the Ninth District, we'll get left behind. Why this seat? I just kind of alluded to it. Every industry that grows, everything that happens in this country happens in DC first. Those federal regulations allow different industries to grow. People wonder why Elon Musk has done so well and why hybrid cars have taken off, because the Obama administration put money and effort and energy and grants into those programs so they could build electric cars and sell them to consumers. And so as new industries are growing, happening there, why not have a congressman who has the mindset of, and I want you to put that in DC, I want you to put that in my district, the Ninth District, to make Memphis competitive regionally, nationally, and internationally. And I think finally, why me? I have a heart for the city. I've told people consistently there are two qualifications in my mind to be able to represent people. You have to know the place that you're representing. You have to love the place that you're representing. And my argument is, if you know Memphis, you love it. And you can't really love Memphis without knowing it, right? And so I understand this place. I love it. I was born and raised here. I did go away to serve in the military, which I've served in the military for 17 years now, 8 on active duty and 9 in the reserves. So when asked, what do you do in the community? What are your qualifications? Well, I continue to serve my country as a military officer. I understand what we do overseas and how people perceive our country. And so I think that is an important qualification. But also, I was formerly the chairman of the Shelby County Democratic Party. People remember back in 2017, we didn't have a Democratic Party. We actually had shut it down for a year. So we put it back together. They said, hey, Corey, we're going to give you the keys. And in a year, by the way, you got a big election coming up. And so what I did over the course of that year was engage Democrats and get them involved in the process. I recruited candidates. We talked about things that were important to voters. When voters needed to get to the polls 2 years ago, that we sued the Election Commission to keep those polling locations open. What was the result? We swept all 10 county level offices. To wit, no Democratic Party chair has ever done that. I'm the only one that's ever done that in the history of Shelby County, to sweep all 10 offices in the way that we did. And so I told people in 2017 it was possible, that if you believed, and I believe the same thing about the Ninth District in Memphis. I think it's a sleeping giant. I think Memphis is a special place. If you've been anywhere in the world with a bunch of people from Memphis, everybody knows them people over there, they from Memphis. So I remember I went to the Naval Academy in Annapolis, and so we would go visit at Howard. You know where the Memphis people were. If you're in Nashville, MTSU, TSU, you know where the Memphis people are. No matter where you are, you know where the Memphis people are. I think there's something in the water, there's something special about this place. And I think there needs to be someone that's promoting it, but promoting it in such a way where we're not trying to strip mine our communities, particularly Black communities, to figure out what we can get out of people, but instead figuring out what our people and what our communities can become by investing in them. And I think it's important to have leadership that does that. And so I think this is an amazing place. I love my home, and I want to continue to serve it the way I've always served my community and my country. And that's why I'm running for the seat.
Okay, fantastic. Now I'm gonna ask some tough questions, and I'm
Please.
sure they're probably some of the same questions you asked for the interest of the audience and participants.
Sure,
We know
sure.
that, like you mentioned, Cohen has been in this seat, has occupied this seat for, I can safely say, decades, right? And yeah, and has the name recognition, and you and I know, being Memphians, that there is so much that happens with name recognition. People have won elections solely based on name, even if they weren't connected to the family that necessarily had the name.
Looking forward to
Right, right.
And so I'm interested in knowing, with the history that he has in Congress, those long-term relationships that have been forged, there's a lot of weight that goes into having the relationship, because Congress is very relational, right? How do you answer the question, being a neophyte in Congress, not having had those relationships, being able to be empowered to still get things done for the district?
No, I think that's important. I think there's a couple of things that are super important in that question. I think the first is, what do congressmen do, and what would I go to DC to do? And I think people believe and limit what they think the congressman does, which is you go vote and pass legislation, and that's all that you do. I don't think the amount of money that is floating around our legal system, or our voting system, our political system, is simply because of some laws that are being passed. There's a number of things that are happening at the federal level, and they aren't just the votes that happen in Congress, right? And so what I would say is the relationships are important to some degree, as far as being able to potentially grants and other things that are packaged in legislation. But I think there's so much more that a congressman can do as far as bringing impact and attention to a particular district. I'll remind people, no matter how you feel about her, about what happened last year with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So she wins in New York. She takes an incumbent that's been in DC for more than nearly 30 years. And she has herself raised $8 million. In addition to that, she has put her part of New York City on the map and brought attention to issues that are important to her as a 30-year-old bartender who is new to Congress. So being new to Congress does not mean you can't have an impact in Congress if you're speaking to issues that resonate with people. And I think the issues I'm talking about, which is how do we engage communities that have been historically overlooked, and empower them in a real meaningful way. Not job volunteer programs to where I can give kids jobs during the summer, but how do I actually put wealth and grow a sustained Black middle class? And I think that is important. You start talking about that, people pay attention. I think the second thing is, yes, Congressman Cornyn's been there for a while. What change have you seen in our district based off his time being up there? So if I keep sending somebody that's been up there for 14 years and he has all these relationships, but ain't nothing changing in my district, we're not getting more federal contracts, Black businesses aren't growing, we're not training people for jobs, and you haven't seen a change in our economy, then what's the value of maintaining relationships that aren't bringing a change to you? Just because you've been somewhere for a minute doesn't mean it's what people actually need. And so I think there needs to be some new ideas and some new vigor in that office. And frankly speaking, people, when they see the 9th District, they need to see Memphis, not someone playing Memphis on a TV show, right? I drive a box Chevy and I talk about stuff. That's not Memphis, right? Someone who talks it, who speaks it, and speaks it in an empowering way. What I can tell you, and I've talked to many people across the world about my city. Everywhere I go, people want to visit Memphis because of the way that I talk about our city. I don't do the poverty porn of, I'm the congressman from the poor Black district in Memphis, and we really need your help. That is not how I see my city, and that is not how I will talk about my city, and that's not how I present this district. And if you speak about it in an empowering way, people will believe it and people will invest in it. I think that's the important thing. And so I want to create and forge new relationships that don't currently exist, companies that want to branch out and want a new headquarters and a new place to build. I want to bring them to the 9th District because those new relationships are going to bring new investment, new jobs, and new attention to a city that deserves it.
We had one question that came in as you were speaking. What is your strategy to change Memphis's mindset on voting for the name recognition for this position?
Sure. My strategy has been fairly consistent, and I alluded to it just now. I asked people, what have you seen, right? Don't talk about naming a post office after a famous Black family. Don't talk about going to a funeral at a big church. Tell me what you've actually seen substantively change or you can attach to him. And most people can't say anything. The people that do say something, they say something like, oh, didn't he do the lottery? My response is, that would be great if he was running for state senate, because that's when he did that, when he was in state senate. He's been in Congress for 14 years, and yet no one can name the thing that he has done. What's the landmark achievement in Memphis, right? Other than a tower at the airport, what is the landmark achievement that you can say, you know what, this community looks different. This brought this many jobs. This is the new economic possibilities that exist in Memphis because our congressman stood in the gap. No one can say it. And so if you can't say it, why would you keep voting for someone just because you know it? Because you're getting the same result, which is the federal dollars coming here are not coming to the communities that need them.
Mm-hmm. And that is not a rhetorical question, right?
Right. Exactly.
So here's my question for you that is not, this is also not a rhetorical question. What are the low-hanging fruits that you see once elected that you can achieve to counter what you just said about you've been in the position for years? There have been things that could be done that have not been done. What are some of the things you can identify as low-hanging fruit for some immediate wins, like in the first 90 days?
So I think even before, this is a primary. So even before I go to DC, I want to understand what the potential economic sectors that Memphis and our chamber want to exploit so that I can go to DC and be informed and be present in those areas. I think the second thing is, what are your committee assignments, right? I think right now the congressman's really active on the Justice Committee and on the Transportation Committee. Transportation Committee is great, although the first time we got money for our transit authority after 6 or 8 years of being on that committee was in January. It's the first time we got money on that out of that committee. So I don't know that it was effective there. I like the idea of being involved in labor and commerce, right? I want Memphis in the 9th district to be involved in different conversations. And so if there is we know, I'll give an example, like I used it earlier, electric cars. We expect by 2040 that half of cars sold will be hybrid or electric, okay? That means companies overseas are going to start building those cars, right? And they're going to build those cars in America. Right now, the U.S. auto companies have kind of a head start on a lot of the companies in the world. But Japan and Korea and Sweden and Germany want to get involved. And they're going to build those cars here. So can Memphis be in the place where we say, hey, why not bring those component manufacturing here and we can be a hub? And oh, by the way, we got this company that can ship anything that you make anywhere in the world in 18 hours, right? Are there conversations around the green economy and this new infrastructure bill? Can we become a center of excellence? And so for different green technologies. And so again, the conversations aren't what's good legislation to pass, but also how can economically the 9th district be presented as a place to be a center of excellence for those new technologies, for these new economic pathways, so that we can bring the types of jobs that Memphians deserve and that will kind of buoy our economy and anchor our economy going forward.
You mentioned a couple of times, you gave a couple of different examples about the poor porn and mentioned the box Chevy. And we know that there have been some demonstrated examples with the KFC and the like that have happened as depictions of what can happen or feeding into, for lack of a better way to say it, some of the stereotypical behavior and mentality that is associated with the 9th district. How will you combat that as a face of the district?
Well, I was just having a conversation with somebody the other day about things that aren't happening during the summer, and one of them is Vacation Bible School. And so I just remember growing up in Vacation Bible School, just sidebar, do you remember the song, I'm a Promise, I'm a Possibility? You remember that song? I haven't heard that song in a while. I just started singing it the other day. I don't know why.
You want to sing it, Corey? You want to hit it?
No, I'm good. I'm good. But the point is, something you learn when you're young, you got to walk and be the light for a place, right? And so I am the representation of that, right? And when you walk in such a way where I am not going to play into those stereotypes, and I'm going to demonstrate what it looks like when you send your finest somewhere. And that's not to say that I believe I'm great, but I'm willing to and have walked my entire life in a place. I'm a licensed attorney. I have a master's in business and have started and executed small business initiatives. I have a master's in urban education and I have worked in education for 3 years, served in my Navy for 17 years. I'm a senior officer in the Navy. I'm a commander. For those in Army speak, I'm a lieutenant colonel. And so I'm a walking example of what is possible and what Memphis produces, because it ain't just me. There's plenty of people just like me walking these streets. And so I think that's the first thing. The second thing is people really have to pay attention, and it's time out on the stuff that we've been letting the congressman get away with. And so I'm just speak straight, right? I vote like a black woman. There's no set of circumstance I'd be allowed to say that. So why y'all let him say that, I don't know. Honorary AKA, again, there's no set of circumstances where you would let me say that. So why do you let him say that?
I can't say I'm an honorary AKA.
Right, exactly.
If I was going to be honorary anything, by the way, it'd be a Delta, but that's a sidebar.
I see you. Delta Sigma Theta can't be.
No hate, no shade on the AKAs, but I'd be an honorary Delta. But no, I cannot say that. And Deltas have told me that, Corey. So yes, to your point, I agree.
If I went on TV and eat fried chicken, it would be a problem. We go back several years ago, and you said, and he said he was talking about some person that was actually not his daughter that he said was his daughter. And then he took a paternity test and found out it wasn't his daughter. And he said, a black man said, oh, you black because you drive a box Chevy and you got a negative paternity test. You one of us. Again, any of these things said today in this world, this Black Lives Matter world, would get him canceled. He's been doing this for years and getting away with it. And so at the end of the day, someone needs to call that out and speak truth to power and say, hey, listen, we are better than that. We deserve better representation of that. Someone who sees us as more than, some legacy stereotype. And when he walks around and says, my constituent sees me as one of them, and those are the words out of your mouth, that means that's how he sees us. And that's a problem. That's a problem for me, and it's been a problem as I've talked to some constituents with a lot of them. A lot of them are not happy with that and are just looking for someone to do that. But I'm not just wanting to be negative. I think on the positive tip I'm not asking people to vote for me because he said some things. I definitely think you should hold him account to those things. But it's because I believe in the promise of Memphis. I believe in what's possible here. And I want to be an economic champion for this place because not only do I not see you negatively as he does, I see the promise in you. I'm going back to the word again. That's why I came up, because I was saying promise and it came up. But yeah, I think that's the focus of what's been the focus of our campaign. But yeah, that we've just let him get away with it for too long, and time's up.
In the midst of what my sister, I think, poignantly coins the Floyd Revolution and Black Lives Matter, we have an opportunity. There's a window of opportunity here for us. How do you see yourself being able to capitalize on the momentum of this opportunity?
So I'm doing everything that I can to bring that message to as many people as I can. And we're starting to ask for people to advocate, particularly those that have been forward in the movement, to say, hey, here's an opportunity to put somebody in place that best represents this area. And so I've tried to take advantage of that. And also we'll be putting out some publications in that regard to say to them, hey, this is the record, right? This is the record. And so that actual advertisement will come out today. And we're pushing people to really think, like, is this what we want to continue to do? It's unfortunate to say this, but I'll be honest. And just speaking straight, because in education we talk about this all the time. You can't talk about race, you can't talk about education. You're not going to be able to fix the problem if you don't talk about it. And so just speaking racially, like a lot of white people have been very, very, very honest and open and engaging with me about, hey, that's not okay with me, and I have been displeased for a while, but the fried chicken was too much for me. And a lot of Black people are like, well, they seem to be there's more of a guilt on their side than it is on the other side, right? And so I think it's important to bring an argument and a case to people and say, hey, is this what you want to continue to go serve for you? And for some older people, yeah, I'm going to keep pushing the ballot box the way I've been. But as I've talked to them, they've said, hey, I'm willing to work for you. I'm willing to mix it up. It's and one thing I've heard consistently, to your point, is this, and I've started to use it to people. I said, hey, I want to get Steve Cohen, and before I even get into my spiel, some I've heard this. You know what? It's time. It's time. And that was prior to George Floyd, but even after George Floyd, I've heard it even more. You know what, baby? It's time. It is. He's been up there long enough, and so it's to try to speak to that particular sentiment and get people to understand there's a qualified person who's offering themselves up for service, and that has worked well for us.
Mm-hmm. How we mentioned transportation earlier, and the fact that yes, there is a company here that's headquartered that can get a package anywhere in 18 hours.
Sure.
And we have what stands as and not functioning as an international airport.
Sure.
Provided the opportunity to be in Congress, what would you do to best utilize the resources, the two resources I just named, to better the 9th District?
So I think, first of all, we have to look at logistics as what it should be. That is our primary industry. I in no way want to interrupt what logistics is and the growth path of logistics. I think logistics has anchored Memphis during this time, continued UPS and other companies who continue to move product during a time where people were sheltered. I don't want to do anything with that. But I think Memphis has to change the priority of logistics. I see logistics as Scottie Pippen. You can't win no championship with Scottie Pippen. You can win some games, but you need a Michael Jordan type industry. You need the type of industry that will get you championships that you can depend on no matter what, that's going to drive wages, drive skilled labor, drive investment, and drive sales and revenue. And we don't currently have that, right? And so I think putting logistics as that number 2 player that you can't win without, but is not the primary driver of things economically is the important thing. And you could have a few industries like that. I mean, if you look at other cities like Nashville, what does Nashville do economically? Can you name the industry? No. What does Atlanta do economically? Can you name it? No. What does Chicago do? They do a bunch of different things. But we do logistics and tourism. That's what we do in Memphis. And so we have to expand better jobs and more diverse jobs. In reference to the airport, there's got to be a serious conversation about how we leverage that asset. But I would also say, until you have business growth, you're never going to change the affordability of flights and the willingness of flights to arrive, because it is businesses that use their business flights that's how they decide which routes they're going to run. So it's not me traveling for pleasure or for a vacation or to get to a graduation. It is another company here that is taking a consistent business route that's driving it, or multiple companies doing that. So until we grow our the business demand on flights to Memphis, we're never going to get the routes here that will bring the cost of those routes down, right? And so those business and first class tickets that are bought, traveling that way are the ones that anchor those flights. And so till we change that, we will continue to be an airport that has really high prices. And so I think it's a chicken or the egg, but in that case, it's very clear. Without the business demand, we won't do that. And you see a lot of businesses fly in and out of Nashville or Little Rock because they have businesses, but specifically Nashville, they have businesses that are traveling more, and then they'll drive here because those routes are stronger. And so we have to compete in the same way.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to open it up now for, I'm going to ask you a question, and then as you're answering, to open it up for the participants to ask a question if maybe that I missed. And I'll let this serve as my last question for you as we wait for questions to come in, Corey. Right. What is it that you want to say to everyone that people are not asking you?
That's a really good question. It's a really good question. What I really want people to ask me, and it's a bit of a rhetorical question, and I think it's based off of, kind of a belief, is what do you really think is possible in Memphis? Right? Like, what's possible? I mean, the question was asked more directly when I was party chair. How strong can the party be, and can y'all win elections? Very specific. Like, that's my role, is very specific. Like, can Memphis win? Can Memphis get over what it's been, and what's possible here. And I think there is no place on earth like the people in Memphis. You just have to have leaders who sincerely believe that, right? Um, the things I saw in my naval career, for instance, I was capable of doing with people who barely had an high school education, but were able to control a $1 billion warship and all the equipment and maintain everything on board it and keep people safe for 9 months going to and fro overseas while using the warship to, land planes and launch missiles and do other things with a bunch of people who barely had a high school education, because we as a military invest in people. We invest in their training. We invest in their growth. We have a vested interest in seeing everybody that comes into our ranks to continue to move up in their particular career path. What would it look like if there was a Memphis that did that, that said, I want all these kids at school to be able to realize their dreams right here in the city, and we have an industry that we want them to develop into working for to drive the city forward. The other things, what I'm talking about is just prioritization. But what's already in the people, you can't find it anywhere else, right? Like, I'll say this, and this is I'll end with this story, and it's a funny story, but it's a true story, and this is honestly how I see my city. So I wanted to come back home. I was stationed in California, and I was, that's one of my hobbies, and so I was on my Cali thing. I was in San Diego. I was just kind of wild, like not very Memphis. It's not how I dressed at White Station back in the day, going to a Cap League party. I was dressed totally different. You know what I mean? So I'm at the gas station right by my parents' house, and this guy sees me, and I look like I don't belong. Now, right by where I grew up, but I look like I'm not from here. So he looked at me. So he kind of looked me up and down. I'm like, oh, he finna have something to say. So he said, you going out on the town, ain't it, my dude? And so he cut me real good, right? He got me real good. And I just, think about checking after school on the bus and da-da-da-da. But what that actually illustrated to me was, even though I was an outsider, he was willing to engage me, right? Like, people will make you feel at home really quickly in Memphis. Everybody's clever, everybody's witty, everybody's funny, everybody can sing. I know so many people that can cook. I know people that are serious with these numbers. I know people that are serious with these words on this computer. I know people that have any number of talents, and anything you throw at people, even if you don't give us the training, we'll figure it out and make it right. So what would happen if you took people that talented, that special, and then put a little money into them, and a little investment into them, and said, I want to drive an industry in our economic future using you. We have squandered our people in our communities so ruthlessly. What if you put a little money into the people that are already better than anywhere else? And so that's the way I see my city. And so I want people to believe that's possible. And if they believe that's possible, they will only elect leaders who are on that agenda. And I think that encompasses how I see the world and how I want people in Memphis to see their city and themselves. It's like that old sermon, boy, you ain't no chicken, you an eagle. And if we ever figured out we was eagles, if we ever figured that out in Memphis, there'll be no place in the world to compare to us.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I said I was going to ask you one last question, but anybody that's ever talked to me before, Corey, knows I can talk endlessly. I love engaging with people. It's one of the things. It's one of my superpowers. It's my jam.
It's your superpower.
But yeah. I want you to tell people basic information about the election. One of the things that I do on Live at Lunch every single time I'm on is encourage people to register to vote, and then for them to be engaged with understanding what they're voting for there to be education associated with their vote, and then for them to actually practice the act of voting. And so empower people now as we wrap, to know how they can find more information about you on your website, how they can join in supporting your campaign, and then absolutely about the vote. And just before I give you the floor, know that I communicated with everyone on Monday that they needed to be registered to vote by Tuesday so that they could participate in this upcoming election.
No, thanks. I appreciate that. So, first of all, shameless plug, because I'm running for office. Is not shameless, because I believe in myself and I believe in this campaign. To interact with our campaign, to see kind of what we're about, our issues, is the901strong.com. That's our campaign. So I'm Corey Strong. We're in the 901, so the901strong.com. Also on all social media, we're the 901 Strong. So Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. You'll see a lot of our information on Facebook because it's been kind of the main medium to pass a lot of information along. And so if you're interested, reach out to us on our Facebook page or to our website, or the phone number and the email address are there. And so I appreciate your donations, and there are people that are willing to donate. But at the end of the day, we really would like people to share what they know. It's those interactions, those personal conversations that convict people to go vote and feel like that there's a change possible. So that's the grassroots thing. And so if you feel compelled, talk to grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, cousins, and say, hey, let's go to the polls. Voting is a team sport. It's not an individual sport. And so you take your family, take your squad, and that's how we see change. One-on-one about this particular election. So in this particular election, it's the election day is August 6th. That is the general election date. However, we have early vote that starts a week from today on July 17th, and it goes through August 1st, Saturday, August 1st. So it's 15 days of early vote, again, from July 17th through August 1st. You will be voting for, I think there are 5 school board seats that are up. In addition to that, you'll be voting in the primaries, the Democratic and Republican primaries for state legislature and state senate. There are a few state senate seats up and all the state legislators are up, and you'll vote in the primary for District 9. And some of your viewers may be in Shelby County and District 8 for the federal offices, as well as for Senate, right? So those primaries. In addition, we have one local general election that's happening, and that is the General Sessions Court clerk. So if you go to court down to one of those General Sessions courts are run by a clerk. And so we have a Republican and Democratic nominee. That is the general election for that. Everything else, you're in a primary, and these people will go on in November and be elected in that general election along with the president. So for early voting locations, July 17th through August 1st, you can vote at any early voting location if you are not registered. This is not your first time voting. So any of those early vote locations is fine. And then on election day, you have to vote in the precinct that is close to your house on August 6th. And so it behooves you to get out early and vote. Last thing I would say is a lot of people are wanting to vote online because of concerns about the pandemic. That's why we are doing this right here. And so you can request an absentee ballot, and that is www.shelbyvote.com. That is the Shelby County Election Commission. So if you go to the shelbyvote.com, the Shelby County Election Commission, you can go there. You can request an absentee ballot. The process for that is you download the sheet of paper, you fill it out, you send it to them, you mail it to them, and then they will mail you your absentee ballot back. You fill it out, and you put it back in the mail, and then you're good to go. But you do have to request that ballot if you want to vote from home. And so just make sure people are clear on that. So again, those are all the ways that you can vote and what's coming up soon and kind of your one-on-one. But please get out there and vote strong. If you want a strong 9th district, vote Corey Strong. Vote Corey Strong for Congress.
What is one actionable item you want people that are in support of you to take using their Facebook or social media platform, Corey?
What I would please go to our website or go to our Facebook page, the 901 Strong. If you just type in the 901 Strong or Corey Strong for Congress, it will take you to our social media page. Follow our page. I'm gonna give you 2 actionables. Follow our page. And then later today, we are putting out, and this is within the next hour or 2. And so I know I'm asking you to wait on something, but trust me, it's going to be some heat when it comes out. We'll have our final kind of political advertisement where we talk about some of these issues, why it's time for a change. So follow our page and then share that video when it comes out this afternoon. And so you'll know at the ad, at the end of the ad, I say, Memphis, I see you. So when you see that ad, share it today. It's about 1 minute, 50 seconds. When you see it come out, share that today. So follow us on Facebook and then share it. And when you see the ad, it's pretty powerful. And I'm really proud of the work my campaign team did to help put this together.
Fantastic. So I'm going to take your 2 actionables and make it 3. I'm going to tell people to do the 2 things that you said, go to your Facebook page and like it. But then while on the Facebook page, hit the notifications button so that you can be notified, so that when the advertisement for that Corey's mentioning comes out, you will be notified, and then you can take that and share it. So those are 3 action items for you. And
Sure.
give me thumbs up if you're into following my instructions, because if you don't.
I ain't trying to get in trouble, man. We ain't trying to get in trouble out here.
Oh, my team, my crew, the T-Row crew that's on here with us, Corey, they already know. They you know, I give it to them authentic. It's 901.
Hey, see now you are the embodiment. You know what I mean? You are our ancestors' wildest dreams.
That's exactly right.
Yes, ma'am.
But seriously, you are, and I am grateful that you took time out today and out of your campaign time to share with us. This has given a whole new, fresh breath of air and hope for our district. I am excited to see you, to see that you are actively engaged, that you have a passion for your service and not just the pursuit of a position, because there is a difference. And I am going to fully support your pursuit and do what I can to make sure that I share the message with others so that we are truly 901 strong, Corey.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity, and thank you for what you're doing. Keep people educated and engaged during this time. A lot of people are here lonely, and just so having someone to talk to and have someone engaged is super, super important. So thank you for what you do and sharing your superpower with the world.
That is exactly why I started Live at Lunch, Corey. As a certified master coach, I knew that once we were in quarantine that would be the case. And so every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I connect on Facebook Live and share information. And we always have some conversation about politics. And I always use this platform to encourage people to vote. So that won't stop. And I will make sure that I share information. As a matter of fact, Gabby is on here now, Gabby Salinas, and she is going to be one of my guests, and she is running. So we are looking forward to, I'm all about good people. For me, it's a matter of good versus bad, and the color doesn't play a part, but I know as a Black woman that my voice matters, that my life matters, and my vote matters. And so I want other people to recognize that and celebrate that. We have that freedom and we have that liberty, and we've got to be in pursuit of it. So thank you again so much for taking time to be with us today. I will not only I will, as usual, I also take what I record for Live at Lunch, Corey, and share it on my YouTube page. So
great. Awesome.
Just know that I will take care of that today, and that the people that are listening, you have 3 action items. So go get your work done.
As my grandma used to say when I was in law school, I go see her when I was in law school. You getting your lesson?
Get your lesson. Get your lesson. That's right. You got to get your lesson. And anybody on here now, y'all give me a thumbs up before we get off this doggone live. If you had somebody in your family say you better get your lesson, give me a thumbs up or a heart, because y'all know good and doggone well you had to get your lesson. You know you had to get your lesson. And if Corey hadn't gotten his lesson, he wouldn't be where he is now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
All right, Corey, take care. Have a wonderful weekend. And before you sign off, this is how I sign off. I make sure everyone knows that they matter. So I look them in the eyes and say, you matter to me. Here's a cyber hug. Make sure you make every day amazing. And above all else, live like it's a gift, because it truly is. Take care.
Thank you.